So as we just heard, a busy week ahead for President Lee as he is set to visit Japan and the United States for the first time since taking office. Now, before heading to Washington, he is set to meet Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in Tokyo on Saturday. For more on what to expect at the meeting between the leaders of South Korea and Japan, we're joined by Dr. Mi-kyoung, senior researcher at Gyeongsang National University. Dr. Kim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
So President Lee will be traveling to Tokyo tomorrow to meet with the Japanese Prime Minister Ishiba, and this week's meeting comes as this year marks the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japan's colonial rule and also the 60th anniversary of the normalization of bilateral ties between Seoul and Tokyo. So what might be on the agenda when the two leaders meet?
Oh, I can think of basically four following items. Firstly, on economic and trade cooperation. Both countries are facing trade uncertainties from the Trump administration's steep tariffs, and they are likely to focus primarily on technology and supply chains. The summit might explore more opportunities for the enhancement of bilateral cooperation in the areas of tourism, trade, and investment as well. Secondly, on security coordination. Both countries are dealing with security threats from North Korea's growing ties with Russia, making regional security cooperation a priority. Thirdly, both leaders are likely to cooperate with each other to prepare for Lee-Trump summit meeting. Lee's meeting with Ishiba is clearly intended to prepare for the tough challenge of the summit with Trump, where Lee could seek negotiation tips from Ishiba, who has already navigated relationships with the Trump administration over tariff issues. And finally, trilateral cooperation. The visit aims at strengthening bilateral relations and reinforcing trilateral cooperation with Washington, while the meeting could help dispel U.S. concerns by showing how close Seoul and Tokyo are despite their historical disputes.
I see, and it's the first time in 2 years that a South Korean president is visiting Japan, and it's unusual for a new Korean leader to meet the Japanese Prime Minister first before meeting the U.S. president. You just mentioned that he could seek some tips from Ishiba. Could you tell us more about the significance of this trip and what it says about the administration's policy towards Japan?
Oh, yes, of course. The timing is very significant as this represents unprecedented decision to visit Japan before the U.S., highlighting the strategic importance both leaders place on Korea-Japan coordination in the current geopolitical environment. I believe this visit represents a remarkable diplomatic shift that reveals several key aspects of Lee administration's policy towards Japan. First, it seems to suggest a transformation in bilateral history-related policy stance. And what do I mean by this? The significance of this trip cannot be overstated. Lee had spoken harshly of Japan in the past, for example, declaring in 2016 that, quote, Japan is an enemy country, end quote. Now, as president, he is taking unprecedented step of visiting Tokyo before Washington, marking a dramatic evolution in his stance. This posture vis-à-vis Japan is consistent with Lee Jae-myung's pragmatic doctrine, where diplomacy cannot be an exception. Lee's Japan policy basically follows a two-pronged strategy. It seeks cooperation on issues of economy and trade, as well as security, while maintaining a principled stance on historical and territorial disputes. This represents what experts call pragmatic, national interest-centered diplomacy that prioritizes strategic needs over historical grievances. President Lee's adoption of this two-track approach by separating historical issues from present and future areas of cooperation appears to ease lingering Japanese doubt, demonstrating his willingness to compartmentalize contentious issues for broader strategic gains. Lee's unprecedented decision to visit Japan before the United States allows the two Asian neighbors and allies of the US to tightly coordinate their response to Trump administration. Leaders Lee and Ishiba emphasized overlapping concerns about the global turmoil as their primary security partner. In other words, the US turns inward. The upcoming Japan visit seems to reflect Lee's broader foreign policy transformation.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how the summit plays out this week. All right, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.